he's got a party that is increasingly looking like it's impossible to lead, and irreconcilable differences between different groups of MPs. So what he's got, as Theresa May did on Brexit, is a group of MPs in the middle who want their colleagues to unify around a position and try and make some progress. But as you say, he's got concerns both from one wing of the party about whether the bill goes too far in undermining our international obligations, and another wing of the party who wants something even more full fat, to use the dreadful milk analogy that's been doing the rounds over the last couple of weeks. And he sounded rather exasperated on Thursday when he was saying, look, if we went further and disapplied all of the international law obligations, then the Rwandan government has actually said they'd pull out from the whole deal. So that's not going to work.
Rishi Sunak's emergency Rwanda migration scheme has only got a 50% chance at best of enabling flights to take off next year before the general election. That is according to the government's official legal advice. Well, Victoria Prentice, the Attorney General's been told the legislation leaves a significant risk of the European Court in Strasbourg blocking the flights. So is 50% enough? For many in the party, it won't be. And Rishi Sunak seems to be caught in the middle between a Tory party fighting yet again. Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister who quit last week, has written in The Telegraph today that politicians must listen to the people on immigration or face their red-hot fury. Gavin Barwell is the former Chief of Staff to Theresa May, who joins us now. Gavin, good morning.
Good morning.
Look, what do you do in this situation? You put forward this plan, then your legal advisors say you've got a 50% chance at best that you're going to engineer this. What is your next move?
I think the government is probably on the hook on this one and has to press on. I mean, there's a completely different debate about whether they should have got themselves into this situation in the first place, because what voters care about is tackling illegal migration and reducing the overall migration numbers on this particular policy issue. And one of the things that's rather bemusing about this debate is the government is actually bringing the numbers down, but is hardly trumpeting that progress at all, and has got itself in a position where everyone seems to believe that if it can't get flights off the ground to Rwanda, it can't do anything about illegal migration, which is a bizarre position. But given where his MPs are, I think he has no choice but to press ahead and try and find a way to get these flights going.
So why persevere, though? Because it looks like it's, the government's own advisors say this looks, 50% chance at best. Politically, how much of a problem would it be for the Prime Minister to say, right, this strand that we're looking at simply isn't working, we're going to do something more cost efficient?
Well, I think you can see from the responses this week to what's a pretty radical piece of legislation he's introduced, where he's got some MPs saying even that isn't good enough, that if he abandoned the plan altogether, it would probably cause him very significant political difficulties. As I said, I wouldn't have got myself into this position in the first place, but where he is, I can see why he feels the need to press ahead.
What are you hearing about the discontent within the party? Because it seems that the Prime Minister has managed to alienate those who think you haven't gone far enough and those who go, you shouldn't be persevering with this plan. Who's he got on side here?
It's all a bit Brexit, isn't it? I mean, essentially, he's got a party that is increasingly looking like it's impossible to lead, and irreconcilable differences between different groups of MPs. So what he's got, as Theresa May did on Brexit, is a group of MPs in the middle who want their colleagues to unify around a position and try and make some progress. But as you say, he's got concerns both from one wing of the party about whether the bill goes too far in undermining our international obligations, and another wing of the party who wants something even more full fat, to use the dreadful milk analogy that's been doing the rounds over the last couple of weeks. And he sounded rather exasperated on Thursday when he was saying, look, if we went further and disapplied all of the international law obligations, then the Rwandan government has actually said they'd pull out from the whole deal. So that's not going to work. But much as Theresa found when she was dealing with Brexit in late 2018, early 2019, people get so entrenched into their positions that it becomes very hard to get them to compromise.
So are those MPs being irresponsible?
Yeah, they obviously feel very passionately about the issue and they want the government to deliver on it, but they're not listening to what the Prime Minister is telling them. And they're also, I think, not recognising that he's got to find a compromise that takes the whole party with him. And that's exactly the problem the Conservative Party got it into over Brexit, that if you can't align around a position as a party and work together to deliver that, then you end up looking like a shambles to the public. And many of the people listening to this debate may think there are lots of other issues beyond migration that they want the government to be focusing on right now. And you end up devoting outsized time and attention to one issue.
So what would be your advice? You've defined it as a shambles, a party that looks pretty ungovernable. What can the Prime Minister do?
So I think probably next week he's going to be okay, because the debate he's got next week is on what's called the second reading of the bill. So that, if you like, is the vote in principle on whether there should be some legislation on this issue. I'd be very surprised if he loses that vote. He's then got to use the interim period to try and convince people on both sides to compromise and give the approach that he set out a chance to work.
Final thing I want to ask you, Gavin. We've heard from Robert Jenrick, who has said the Tories will face, I'm quoting here, the red-hot fury of voters at the ballot box unless they do more to bring down historically high levels of immigration. Is he right?
Well, he's right that there are a chunk of voters who feel very strongly about that, and the government has set out plans this week to try and deliver significant reductions. But I think you would reflect from your listeners that that's not the only issue that people are angry with the government about. And it has to address all of the issues that voters are concerned about, whether that's the cost of living crisis, whether that's the state of our NHS or some of our other public services. So the Conservative Party can't get itself hooked up on just one issue and imagine that that is the panacea to the electoral problems that it's facing at the moment. It's got to address the full suite of issues that voters care about, and migration is just one of those.
Gavin, thank you so much. Gavin Barwell, the former Chief of Staff to Theresa May, going through the repercussions currently for the Prime Minister of the legislation enacted by Rwanda, and the legal advice from his own advisors saying you've got a 50% chance of best of this actually getting off the ground. And interesting there, Callum, to talk about the fact that the type of challenges that Theresa May was faced with MPs battering down that legislation again and again might be exactly what Rishi Sunak now faces with Rwanda.
Yeah, indeed.